Welcome back to Never Did It. I'm Brad Garoon. I'm here with Jake Ziegler, and we don't have a guest this week because it is the season finale, and we thought we would just talk to each other and wrap up our journey through the century plus of women in films, filling in our own movie blind spots. If you'll indulge me, can we start with the fallout? Because I think there's an interesting connection to be made between the two movies that we're talking about today, but it's easier if we start with the fallout, even though it's the darker of the two movies.
Let's talk about the fallout, yes.
Yeah, so The Fallout is directed by Megan Park, who got a little bit of notoriety. Notoriety is probably not the right word, but got a little bit of screen cred last year in 2024 when she directed the delightful movie My Old Ass. And that was why I recommended we watch The Fallout, because I hadn't seen it, actually, and I was curious to see Megan Park's other movie. My Old Ass is also about, both of her movies are about young women. They're both about young women who actually are getting ready to, move on to a new phase of life. My Old Ass is about a girl who meets a future version of herself on a drug trip. And The Fallout is about a girl who experiences a school shooting. Veda has a very central to her identity is her white mom and Hispanic dad, and her very talkative little sister. Veda is played by, not Olivia Rodrigo, by Jenna Ortega.
Yeah. God, we're so old and in the way.
Yeah, and you know what? I actually love Olivia Rodrigo. I think her music's really good.
We do too, actually. Yeah, we listened to her in the house, and we had a family movie night, and we watched her concert film on Netflix, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looked good. I haven't seen it yet. But Jenna Ortega plays Veda, who is, I can't tell if she's an alternative girl or if it's just Gen Z, but she wears baggy clothes, and her best friend is a very opinionated gay guy, much taller than her and looks much older than all the other kids her age in the movie, because the actor is actually much older than all the other actors in the movie. But they have like a cool thing going. They've got a great little relationship. And at school, actually like right away, Veda goes to the bathroom at first to talk to her sister who's just gotten her first period. And then she goes to the bathroom where she sees Mia, another student, played by Maddie Ziegler, who is very well known for dancing. This actress got her start dancing and then did some music videos. I know she did a music video with like Sia and Shia LaBeouf that was very famous. And she was in My Old Ass as well. I think she's the only cast member that's in both.
I think that's right, yeah. No relation too, by the way. No relation that we know of.
I was really excited to say your cousin, Maddie Ziegler.
Yeah.
And while they're in the bathroom, they hear gunshots and they hide in a stall together. And then another kid comes in to the bathroom, a boy, and he's covered in blood. It's not his, but and they all, shelter in place in this stall together. It's a really harrowing scene. And the rest of the movie is about the titular fallout from this event where they went through this shooting and Veda's very difficult journey to feel something again after she gets sort of hollowed out emotionally, and her burgeoning friendship with Mia. So like I said, I'd never seen it before, and I was really impressed. I wasn't surprised that I was impressed because I really liked My Old Ass. Megan Park has a real handle on, she writes and directs her movies, first of all. I think she has a real handle on the dialogue that kids use. I think she has a real handle on the awkwardness of youth. I think she uses like even kind of cringy, bad dialogue in a really effective way. And I don't know who the cinematographer was on this movie. Kristen Carell. That's great. Another woman. Incredible. Like really a beautifully shot movie. Jenna Ortega does a quite good job. Jenna Ortega, I think, was cast really well for this because she sort of has a flat affect. That's kind of her thing. I mean, she plays Wednesday, after all. Maybe even like part of her work here was what made her appealing for that show. And she's 19 years old when she acts in this movie, which is pretty wild. It's a heavy duty task and she's very small. And she uses that like small person energy throughout the movie. All of that I was really impressed by. And all of that to say, I just think Megan Park is kind of a special filmmaker who I'm excited to see what she does from here, because she went from this to, sorry, I'm getting way ahead. We'll talk about her more in a bit. What did you think of The Fallout?
Yeah, I was also similarly impressed with it. I remember it having really good reviews when it came out, especially for it being it was directly to HBO. It didn't have any, no sort of theatrical run or anything like that, which is less of a knock against a movie than it used to be. But still, I remember being very well reviewed. And my friend Dan Hogue was also really impressed with it. I remember him talking about it at the time. And like you, I was not surprised that I was impressed with it. But what I was impressed with was a little bit surprised was the lead performances. I mean, I haven't seen Jenna Ortega in a whole lot, but I don't watch Wednesday. I saw Beetlejuice. That was, whatever. Yeah, she's in, what is it? Not X. What's the first one? No, X is the first one,
Yeah,
right? X.
she's in the first one. Yeah.
Yeah, in the first one, she gets like just brutally murdered in that one, and it's awesome, and she's like really fun in that. But like, I haven't seen her in a whole lot, and this was totally different than anything that I had seen her take on, and she really carries the movie. But also Maddie Ziegler, who, like you said, is famous for dance, and in this movie she plays someone who is famous for dance. So it's kind of an interesting relationship you have between her and the Jenna Ortega character, between Veda and Mia, because like you said, Veda is more, dresses, real baggy clothes, is, kind of not necessarily a loner, but, certainly doesn't hang out with, the popular group at the high school and all that. And Mia's more well known, she's tall, blonde, complete, kind of opposite thing that they've got going on there. And I thought they both were really, really quite good in this. I don't know if I've ever seen Maddie Ziegler act in anything else other than, her small part in My Old Ass, but very different from what I'd seen either of them do. It had to just be very difficult material to work with too. I mean, I have a 13-year-old, so I mean, the thinking about school shootings is an unfortunate reality of probably, I don't think about it every day, but probably at least a couple times a week. And I live in a small town, so it's the chances are low, but they're not zero.
So what we've been doing lately, I watched this with my wife last night, and when we watch stuff at night, I get on the exercise bike while she sits calmly and watches, and I try not to make too much noise. But that scene comes on while I'm on the bike, and part of exercising while I watch movies is I think much, if you can believe it, I'm much more vocal when something happens, just because I've got a lot of adrenaline going, and I could not being like, oh my God, holy shit. It just, it's not big. You never see the shooter, and you see very little of the fallout, but just the extreme close-ups on Ziegler and Ortega's faces, incredible performances. You just keep hearing these like pop, 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 scream, pop, scream. It's very effective without being exploitative. For a long time, didn't want to watch any school shooting movies ever. It's just such a awful, brutal, unacceptable part of our reality in the United States, and seemingly only in the United States. In fact, there is an interesting and a little bit on the nose moment where right after the shooting, they focuses on a flagpole and pans up, and you see the American flag before the title shows. And I looked at my wife and was like, that's a bit on the nose, but it truly is just an American problem. Not to say it's never happened anywhere else, but it happens here all the time. So I was really impressed that this was powerful without making me feel like I need to stop watching this movie. Impactful without being too punishing for the tone of the rest of the movie, which is not a sad movie, so to speak. Sad things happen, but this is a person she's a fun person to be around. She's a fun person to spend time with. And that doesn't just go away because she was involved in this shooting. So yeah, I thought that scene was incredible.
It was, and what it reminded me of, I don't think a lot of people would necessarily make this comparison, but it just kind of popped into my head the way you were describing that scene of, being just so powerful without being exploitative or anything like that. And it reminded me of the Paul Greengrass movie, United 93, which came out just a couple of years after the 9/11 thing happened and was, a very kind of straightforward retelling of what happened on that. And that's kind of how I felt about that movie. I thought the movie was incredible, and it made me feel ways that I don't always want to feel at the movies, or, maybe very rarely want to feel at the movies, but it was pretty incredible feeling that I had from it. And this movie did that in a much shorter amount of time. Like United 93 kind of builds that through the whole movie, and this movie just does it. Something like you said, it's almost like right away, very early in the movie, and the scene, it doesn't linger. It's just right there, and she does all of that like in just this really small amount of time. And then after that, it's a completely different kind of movie. Watching them deal with, as we've said, the fallout.
I'm so glad you brought up United 93, because I don't know if you remember this, but we were roommates when that movie came out, and I was very mad. I was 22 years old, and I was like, I don't think this movie should even exist. To me, without having seen it, obviously, I felt people should not be making money off of this tragedy. And at the time, I'm going to defend myself a little bit and say up front, my feelings on this kind of thing have softened extremely. I just felt no matter how much the families of the people who were killed in that attack, it just sat wrong with me that anyone would make a profit off of the telling of that story. Now, my feelings on storytelling have changed now. We need these artifacts to exist and to be not just restored, but kept, upkept, so that people have, movies are not the most thriving medium, but they are at least for now, a through line that we have to look back at events in history, be they slightly fictionalized or not. So I'm glad that United 93 exists. I can say now that I was wrong in that conversation, but that was the feeling I was having. And, part of that still sits with me, not with the too soon piece of it, but with the exploitation of it. So I'm really glad you brought up United 93.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't expect to be doing that before we started, and it just kind of popped in there. So would you watch it now?
Yeah, I would. Well,
yeah.
For one thing, it's been forever.
Right, but I didn't know if you were interested. I mean, you still might not be totally interested in watching it, so I'm
not dying to watch United 93, but 20 years after the movie came out, literally, this is the 20th anniversary of that film, I think I could watch it. Another scene I want to talk about, one that I thought was incredible, and maybe one that I think a lot of people watching would pick out, but not the flashiest scene. It's shortly after the attack. This movie does text messaging really well. And the scene where it does it best, I think, is this one where she's on the couch texting with Quentin, the boy who was in the bathroom with them, whose brother was killed in the attack. Slight spoilers for the very beginning of this movie. And she's texting back and forth with him. And in the background, her sister is practicing a TikTok dance over and over and over again. And the juxtaposition of those two things, it's a totally silent scene except for the music and the beep, 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 and the music playing for this girl, the pantomime. I thought the composition of this shot was so perfect, showing how this little girl, the little sister, one, should not be dealing with the fallout of the shooting. It's not her responsibility as like a 13 or 12-year-old girl to deal with the emotional fallout her sister's dealing with. And nor is her sister putting that on her, which I think also helps to make Veda a really sympathetic character, that she's just taking it in stride. This is going on in the background. Anyone might be irritated by it, but she's just dealing with it and texting with this guy, this very heavy thing, this guy whose brother died. I don't know. That was my favorite shot in the entire movie. Did that stand out to you at all?
Absolutely. Yeah, you could totally see that. And I think what's happening right now is that we both gave this movie 4 stars and we're talking ourselves into 4.5 stars just by talking about all the things we love about it and how good that was. But yeah, I mean, absolutely noticed that too. It reminded me, again, of a connection. I didn't necessarily make it first, but Mark Waters did something similar in Mean Girls with the little sister who was dancing like to the Milkshake song. When they go over to Regina George's house for the first time, it was like a similar juxtaposition of the shots like that. And that's what I thought, and that's what it reminded me of. So I definitely noticed that. And I loved the little sister. I mean, there were 2 other performances, or another performance we haven't talked about a whole lot yet, but I thought the sister was great. She was like exactly the right amount of annoying to still be endearing. You know what I mean? Like annoying like a little sister would be, but also just like obsessed with her big sister. I really liked her. And then another performance that just was kind of surprised by was Shailene Woodley, who to me is still like when I think of her, I think of The Descendants. So like here she is playing this like adult role, you know, like I don't know, for me she's still like George Clooney's kid, you know.
I'm so glad you said this. This happened to me the first time when I saw Dumb Money, which she's also great in. But I'm like, she's an adult pregnant with someone's kid, and then this, I'm like, she's the adult in the room. I'm like, she's much younger than me. This is really upsetting.
That's what I thought too. I was like, she shouldn't have this job. How does she have this job? She's not old enough. But of course she is. This is ridiculous, but I liked their interactions too. Like you said, that went a long way for making the Veda character more likable, just with the way that she's dealing with this is a way that, like, I think, you know, a lot of people would hope that they could deal with something like this. And I think those scenes go a long way in helping establish that too.
So there's 2 therapy scenes, and I wonder if you thought of this too, but it is structured exactly the same as the therapy scenes in Bob Trevino Likes It.
I did not notice it at first, but yes.
Exactly the same, where she goes for her first therapy session. It doesn't go so well. And Bob Trevino Likes It is played way more for laughs, where the therapist just like can't handle the sadness. But then the catharsis at the end of the movie is with the therapist. And the same thing is done in this movie. And I wonder if Tracy Lehman was a big fan of this movie and borrowed that you know, they're not similar in their content, but they pop up at the exact same point in the movie, those 2 therapy scenes. And I wonder how many other movies do this too, because it kind of does work as a way of telling you where your main character's at, is to have like a not so great therapy scene at the beginning and then a very cathartic one at the end.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think this movie, actually, you're right. I've convinced myself it's 4.5 stars. And yeah, Megan Park, I can't wait to see what she does next, because the 2 movies are so different from one another.
That's so striking to me too. Like, yeah, just how different, because again, I didn't know much about the fallout. I honestly didn't know it was even about a school shooting. So I had expected something a little lighter than what it is. Certainly not disappointed. Like I said, I think it's great. And I liked My Old Ass a lot too, if I didn't say that before. But yeah, they're so just profoundly different and unique in a way that's like, yeah, give me, you know, whatever she wants to do next. I mean, she's going to be one of those, I don't watch trailers anyway. You know, she's going to be one that's like, once I hear that name, like Megan Park, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm in.
I just want to go back to one thing you said earlier. You said, you know, this was just straight to HBO Max, but that was a product of COVID and also HBO Max wanting to front load the service. It played at Sundance in 2021 and then didn't come on to HBO Max until late 2022. So they could have released it in theaters, right? Theaters had reopened by then. And honestly, this is a movie theater movie, if you ask me. This might be a good time to segue into CODA. I mean, unless you have more to say about
No, I think that's a great segue to CODA, talking about movies that didn't play at the theater.
Okay, so let's talk about CODA. What's it about? Why did you recommend it?
CODA is about a family. First, CODA is an acronym for Children of Deaf Adults. And the main character in this film is a girl, a high school girl, who has her parents are both deaf, and her brother is also deaf. Her mom is played by Marlee Matlin, who is just wonderful in every possible way. And then her dad's played by Troy Kotzer, who won an Oscar for this. But it kind of follows her through her later high school life, trying to help her family family just kind of get through their day-to-day life, being, unable to hear. But it's also about her kind of wanting to do her own thing away from her family. She is really interested in singing and really wants to pursue that, which, of course, is a difficult thing to communicate about with her family. And that's really kind of about it. It's just it's a family drama about them, kind of going through their fishermen. It takes place out on the East Coast, so they're fishermen, and of course that's a difficult business to be in.
An aggressively Massachusetts movie.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, it's like, you feel like there should be an Affleck popping up somewhere, but, that didn't happen. A lot of Red Sox hats. But yeah, so it's just about this blue-collar family, trying to get by, and this girl trying to find her place and find her way on her own for the first time. And it won Best Picture for the year 2021. I don't think it's one of the more highly regarded Best Pictures, but it's certainly not hated the same way that, like, Crash is hated or, like, Green Book is hated by a lot of people. But that's one of the main reasons I picked it, is that, it did win Best Picture. It was, a huge hit I believe it played at Sundance, where it was a big hit, and then must have had a small theatrical run, or I think maybe it was the year they relaxed the rules and didn't need that for the Oscars, whatever it was. It was able to qualify, dropped on Apple TV, and, became the first primarily streaming movie to win the Best Picture Oscar.
And you like it?
I do like it. Yeah, I think it's good. Before we get into too much, but the one thing I can say about this movie, I really like this movie. I love all the family dynamics. I think they all play it really well. It's just such a, it's a well acted movie. The family's great. Like I said, Marlee Matlin is perfect. Troy Kotzer is incredible in this, and we also watched him on Curb recently. We saw his episodes. Did you ever finish season 12 of Curb? Oh, Troy Kotzer does I think just one episode, but he's really funny in it.
I think I'm like 2 or 3 seasons from having seen all of it.
But yeah, he does an episode on that, and he's really funny. So I like all of the family stuff in there. It's a very earnest movie. I'm into that. Eugenio Derbez, though, who plays the music teacher, everything he does in the movie is wrong, and I dislike that performance so much, and it almost ruins the movie. Like in every scene that he's in. I don't know if that was the director. Her name is Sian Heder. That's the only film of hers I've seen. But whoever gave him his direction, if that was like his ideas or like her ideas, choices, it was so wrong and just so off-putting every time he was on camera that really threatened my enjoyment of the movie. But overall, I do really like it.
Okay, I'm relieved you said that about Derbez. He is the Mexican Adam Sandler, and this is his Punch Drunk Love, right? Like, he's not the star, but like this was part of his effort to get into dramatic roles, but he is a goofball. Like, this is a guy who was on Rob Schneider's show that he self-financed called Rob. Not my tempo, I'll put it that way. And I also did not think he was right for the role of the music teacher. There's one moment he has in the movie where she's doing her tryout that I thought was kind of sweet. But by and large, I really disliked him and thought that the tone was all messed up every time he was on screen. I thought this was the most 3-star movie I've ever seen. In fact, for like the first hour, I was like, I actually couldn't understand how this was even nominated for Best Picture through the first hour. I was writing up a review on my notepad, and the first thing I wrote was, this is an aggressively 3-star movie, but then I was only writing things I disliked. And then you get to the recital where Ruby finally gets to perform in front of her parents, which I thought was very well done. And basically everything after that I thought was really well done. So I felt a little bit taken advantage of. I was like, this is a movie where the third act really warms your cockles and will leave you feeling good, which is what you want in a movie like this. So it was effective in that way. However, I thought everything that happened in high school was Lifetime movie level stuff. The bully girl who never really becomes a character is just so outlandishly mean, just so we know that she's been bullied before. But I think it would have been perfectly fine to just say, like, her backstory, Ruby's backstory, where she's like, I came to school and I talked like a deaf person. They made fun of me. That's all I need to know. I don't need to see people being like comically mean to you. And then because of that, I felt like Ruby's character didn't totally gel for me, because when she's with her family, she's such a badass. She's protecting them. But then I actually don't buy that she would completely shrivel up outside of that environment. Like, the people that she's having to defend her family against are so much scarier than this one girl at school who's it's one girl. right? It's just one girl who's like the ringleader of all this crap.
I would say right now we are two 40-year-old white dudes trying to understand a teenager, a teenage girl, and like why she would be afraid of one thing but not another. I mean, I don't think there necessarily has to be a good reason for that. Like, yeah, so she's tough with these people, but not so tough with this one person. I don't think there needs to be like a logical explanation for that. I mean, we're afraid of what we're afraid of, you know?
The mechanics of it don't have to be what I expect them to be. It has to feel real. And to me, I was like, she just feels like two different characters. in these two different places. The reason I'm so excited to talk about this while we're talking about Fallout, by the way, it's probably like somewhere between, for me, 3 and 3.5, because that ending is really strong. But in Fallout, Jenna Ortega's character is very consistent, even though she acts very different around different people. And I think part of the problem is for CODA, part of the problem is that I think the script is not as strong. And part of the problem is I think Amelia Jones is actually not that good of an actor. And maybe part of the problem is only Troy Kotsur and Marlee Matlin are American actors. Everyone else in this movie is British or Irish or Mexican or Canadian. And they're putting on rural Massachusetts coast accents or neutral accents, and they're focusing so much on these accents, it's not working. And what really didn't work, the part that I was bothered by the most, was the romance between Ruby and the popular boy at school. Mostly because I think the actor, whose name is Ferdio Walsh Pilo, an Irish actor, is very bad. Not to the level of miscast as the music teacher. He is doing Disney Channel. There's one funny scene where, and I liked the script in this scene. I won't say I was without joy. Like, I didn't dislike this movie to any extent. There were just a lot of things that bothered me. And I want to talk about a couple things I really liked. But one really funny scene was when one of the reasons that the bully girl, whose name we don't even ever find out, I think, is able to make fun of Ruby, the romantic lead, and Ruby are at, I think his name's Miles, and they're at Ruby's house and they're practicing, and all of a sudden they start hearing Ruby's parents having sex because they don't know anyone's not home. They think no one's home because they can't hear. And then Ruby's dad does this very funny in sign language, like put a condom on, but it's very ornate and like graphic. It's pretty funny. But what's funnier is Miles tells one friend, his friend tells a bunch of people. It ends up humiliating Ruby, and they have this apology scene in the school. And at the end of it, Ruby does not forgive Miles, and Miles says, "Well, I'm just going to text you every couple of minutes until you forgive me." And Ruby says, "That's psychotic." And Miles says, "Okay, I'm not going to do that." And I really like that, because when he was saying what he was going to do, I was like, that is bad. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what I really liked about the movie. I liked that Marlee Matlin and Troy Kotsur's characters are unlikable, and that the movie did not treat them with kid gloves in any way. Like, these are parents who are being selfish because they're scared. But from Ruby and her brother, who's more involved in the family business, from both of their points of views, even though the brother, I think, is also maybe the best character in the movie, from their points of view, the family is just over-reliant on Ruby, who's the only person, as you said, the only person in the family who can hear. Troy Kotsur has one great line when the parents are arguing. She keeps saying, Marlee Matlin says, "I don't want my baby to go to college." And he goes, "He's not your baby." And she says, "She'll always be my baby." And he says, "She was never your baby." Like, he's getting at how he knows we've always expected her to be an adult.
Yeah.
And Marlee Matlin, her relationship, or the way she looks at Ruby is, I thought at times, despicable. And I really liked that the movie wasn't afraid to make this deaf couple not nasty. They're fun, and they're certainly like funny. They're children. They themselves act like children. Like, they can't get their shit together. Without her, they'd be lost. And it's not until the brother really stands up for her, and not because he cares about what happens to her so much, but because he's frustrated that he's not allowed to have enough autonomy because they don't trust him because he also can't hear. I thought that whole dynamic was really good. In fact, most of the family stuff I really liked. Just so much crap in the high school I did not like.
Yeah, when I think about the movie too, and even now, having just watched it a couple of days ago, when I think about it, I only think about the family stuff, and that's probably why I have the rosy view of it. And it, like I said, it ended strong. The third act is quite good and ends very strong. There's this other really small scene before she performs public for her parents. They're sitting on the back of the truck, her and her dad.
Amazing.
That just wrecked, full disclosure, I'm not deaf, but I do have hearing difficulties. So I'm like community adjacent. So, and I'm, and my condition is degenerative. So I think I'm very scared that at some point I am going to completely lose my hearing. So scenes like that, where, she starts singing and she, put her dad, she puts his hands up like it's kind of under her throat like that, so he could feel just the vibrations of her throat when she's singing. And that killed me. I thought that was such a wonderful scene.
Can we talk about the Oscars? This is like a big part of this movie is the Oscars. This was a surprise win. I think if you had bet on CODA to win, you probably would have gotten a lot of money.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, it was
Power of the Dog was the favorite, wasn't it?
Power of Dog was the favorite. Yeah, and I see, but CODA was, people were saying, like this because it won I think it won the SAG, like the Screen Actors Guild, and it had won a couple of the other precursors where it was like, I think it was a surprise, but not like a like the biggest surprise ever or anything. But yeah, definitely a surprise.
This will go down for me. I'm not someone who gets hung up on the Oscars like you are. Thankfully, you're not the kind of person who's like, this shouldn't have won, so it sucks. I don't think this should have won Best Picture. I don't even think necessarily it should have been nominated.
I didn't have it in my top 10, no.
Yeah, the Dune was nominated this year. Power of the Dog, Drive My Car
Drive
was
My
like
Car.
absolutely the best movie that came out in 2022. The Fallout probably deserved it,
Yep.
frankly. It doesn't deserve that, but I'm less irritated by Troy Kotzer's win. Not
Mhm.
that the competition wasn't as stiff. It wasn't. I mean, like the competition in Best Picture was more stiff than the competition in supporting
Mhm.
actor. But you had Jesse Plemons for Power of the Dog, who was quite good, just not in the movie very much. Cody
Mhm.
Smith McPhee for Power of the Dog, who
It
was
was
very good.
incredible in that, yeah.
Yeah, like if you had to ask me, I'd say it probably should have gone to him.
Oh boy, the other two. Well, one of them I like Kieran Hines from Belfast, who I thought was very good in that. You didn't see Belfast, did you?
No, but I love Kieran Hines.
Yeah, Kieran Hines, and he's great in that, and I think you would definitely like that movie. And then the other one, love the actor. Movie was so meh, but that was J.K. Simmons in Being the Ricardos.
Right. So not only is the contest really just between Cody Smith McPhee and Troy Kotzer, but Troy Kotzer is giving like a really unconventional performance. Like you said, that scene in the bed of the truck holding his daughter's neck while she performs, unbelievable. Now, granted, he's playing a different character in that scene than he is in the rest of the movie. You know, he's kind of a clown for a lot of the movie. He has jock itch. He's talking about his boiling lobster claw balls, and you know, he's very silly until the last 30 minutes when he's not, but he really turns it on. And he's fun to watch in the beginning of the movie. But I do think it's nice that he got it. I was annoyed again, first hour. I'm like, how did he win? And then I saw the last half hour and I'm like, yeah, it's a worthy performance.
It is. Yeah, I agree with that. That would have been the one nomination that, and the movie went 3 for 3 actually too, because it was picture, supporting actor, and then the screenplay, the Sean Heder. I think it won the best adapted screenplay too, over Drive My Car, Dune, Lost Daughter, and Power of the Dog. Now, I don't think for 1 second that CODA is a better written movie than any of those movies, but it did. It went 3 for 3, which also is pretty rare for a Best Picture to only have 3 nominations and to win them all. Yeah, it was just kind of an anomaly, but there was a lot of weird stuff going on in the movie industry at that time.
For sure. Not my least favorite Oscar winner that I've seen, because I've seen Gentleman's Agreement, and also I'm not a fan of Crash. I don't think Green Book is a bad movie. Definitely didn't deserve to win Best Picture.
I'd say it's right around with CODA, like where it's like it's a fine movie. There are things that are good about it. There are things that are just ridiculous about it too. But like it's not that bad. Come at me, but I don't think Crash is that bad either. I mean, again, wouldn't be anywhere near my Best Picture. It's not in my top 10, but I think there are some good sequences in that movie and some really bad ones too.
Right.
But it just gets the hate because it won,
For sure. Like I just watched Shakespeare in Love and I was like, this is a really funny movie. Saving Private Ryan is a better movie than Shakespeare in Love.
I remember, I haven't seen either of them in a long time, but I just remember Saving Private Ryan having like a really great beginning and like a really boring middle and then like an okay end. I don't remember like being in love with that movie.
Maybe we should do a rewatch. I mean, Spielberg's got another movie coming out this year, so we should do a Spielberg ranking.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to watch Saving Private. I mean, I haven't seen Saving Private Ryan in so long, and there's a couple of Spielbergs I've never seen, so I'd be up for that.
Which ones have you never seen? Oh, wait, let me guess. Always?
Yeah, never seen Always. Who has? Yeah. Name one person who's seen Always.
Couldn't say.
Yeah. 1941, I know I haven't seen.
You've seen Duel?
I've seen Duel. I have not seen Sugarland Express, though, which I think he did right after Duel.
It's good.
I don't know. I'd have to look at the rest. I mean, basically probably from after Always. After that, I've probably seen all of them.
Yeah.
I would guess, yeah.
BFG is pretty bad.
I remember liking it, but I saw it with Viv when she was little, and but I haven't seen it since.
He had a couple of stinkers in that era.
Yeah, I know Warhorse wasn't everybody's most favorite.
I've never seen Warhorse.
Warhorse, I love the movie fine, but my favorite part about it is a bit that Conan O'Brien did. I don't know if you remember this. I'll have to send you the clip. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Clip, cloppity, clue. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's my favorite thing.
All right, we've covered it. This is the season finale, so we're finally getting our act together, and we're doing, I know we've done this like sort of, I did one top 10 list at one point. You joined in for like some favorites of the decade, but we're doing a real top 10 each. Our favorite movies directed by women for the decade so far. Do you want to go first?
I'll go first, yeah. My number 10 is Barbie, directed by Greta Gerwig. Tons of fun, dominated that summer with Oppenheimer. High rewatchability. Ryan Gosling is so much fun. The songs are great. Yeah, just a cool movie. My number 9 is a very recent entry I just saw a couple of weeks ago, Ava Victor's Sorry Baby. I thought this movie was so great and just so unique and fun and sad and just well acted and just incredible. I mean, she did a great job starring, writing, directing. Terrific movie. Number 8 is a little scene film, I think, by a director named Eliza Hittman called Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. Came out in the kind of odd space of the early 2020 when the theaters were shutting down. It's a very, really powerful movie about the after effects of a young woman who decides to get an abortion. My number 7, Regina King's One Night in Miami. I love movies that are just talking in one space. Linklater's got a couple of these, and this is one of those movies. We've got the 4 lead performances. It was Aldous Hodge, Kingsley Ben-Adir, Leslie Odom Jr. Like I said, I like those kind of movies, those talking in one place movies. My number 6 is Celine Song's Past Lives. This movie affected me on a very deep emotional level. Love the performances, and that one is just a really beautiful movie. Number 5 for me is one we talked about a little earlier, is Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog. I think there's, again, great performances across the board here. Benedict Cumberbatch and Kirsten Dunst, Cody Smith-McPhee, Jesse Plemons. Power of the Dog was the biggest Oscar nominee that year. It was nominated for 12 Academy Awards and only won 1. That was for Jane Campion, the director, which again is pretty rare. It lost out to CODA, which is interesting that if, the 2 top movies at the Oscars that year were directed by females. I think it's probably the only time, I'd have to check, but it's probably the only time a female directed picture and director have won, except for, when Nomadland did it, but probably 2 different directors. Okay, number 4, then, speaking of Nomadland, is Nomadland, Chloe Zhao's film with Frances McDormand, David Strathairn. Really, really liked it. Wish I could have seen this in IMAX when it played there. I think that movie would have looked really, really cool.
You want to know something crazy about that? It's never been released in 4K. You can only get it on Blu-ray. So forget
Really?
IMAX. You can't even watch it like as nice as it could be at home.
Man, that's ridiculous. That seems like a perfect movie to be 4K. Yeah, her visual style is really neat. I'm interested for you to see Hamnet too. I think you'll like it. Yeah, I'm just curious to hear what you think of that when you see it. Number 3 is a movie we've talked about on this podcast before, Sarah Polley's Women Talking. An incredible movie, just with performances that are just astounding from every single one in that cast. I mean, yeah, we've got Claire Foy and Jessie Buckley. Ben Whishaw is really great in that, and I'm sure it's a ton of other actors that I'm neglecting to name right now. But yeah, Sarah Polley can do no wrong. She's one of our favorite directors here on the podcast. That brings us to our number 2, a movie that is a bit lengthy. And when I started watching, it's like, I'll watch the first half tonight. It was late. I think it was about 10 o'clock. So I'll watch maybe the first half tonight and then I'll finish it tomorrow. I did not do that. I watched the whole thing straight through and was just absolutely glued to the screen. And that is Justine Trias' Anatomy of a Fall. I knew nothing about this movie before I watched it. Is that not on your list? Did you miss that one?
No, I'm having to redo my list as you say your list. It's really frustrating.
Who cares? I mean, our lists are our lists. Just do it how you feel.
I'm annoyed that I didn't have the information ahead of time.
Oh, okay. Sorry. That's my number 2. That movie is incredible. The courtroom scenes are great. The scenes at home are great. Sandra Hüller is just amazing in this. Yeah, awesome movie. And then my number 1, a movie, again, we talked about fairly recently, but Emerald Fennell's Promising Young Woman. This movie just unbeatable in vibes. Carey Mulligan is fantastic. Bo Burnham is so good in it. A really fun movie. And it was a great theater experience. It was Christmas Day 2020 when it came out. We hadn't been to the movies very much that year. My wife and I got to go after the holiday stuff, and it was just at the time it came out, it was exactly what we needed, and I still think it's awesome.
Great. So our lists are more similar than I would have originally thought because I was missing some of this stuff, but I have a few honorable mentions. My first is Bottoms by Emma Seligman, and it's only an honorable mention. It's actually, I have it rated higher than most of the movies on this list, but it's only an honorable mention because a different movie of hers is on my list, and I felt like that was one that deserved the actual spot. Crip Camp is an honorable mention, also is ranked higher than other movies on this list. The reason I have it down here is because it was directed by Nicole Newnham and Jim Lebrecht, so because of the involvement of a man, it is only on the honorable mentions list.
I didn't include documentaries, but if I did, Crip Camp would be a great choice. That movie was really good.
Yeah, I have another documentary a little bit higher. And then my other 2 honorable mentions, just for being ranked slightly lower than the rest of these movies, are 2 that were on your list, Greta Gerwig's Barbie and Celine Song's Past Lives. My number 10 is Ava Victor. Sorry, Baby, you mentioned it. Kind of thought it would be higher up on the list, but there's a lot of good movies directed by women in the last 5 years. My number 9 is Jane Campion's Power of the Dog. I'm not going to go too much into the ones that you went into. I like them for pretty much the same reasons. My number 8 is Nomadland. I want to make one thing clear. You can watch it technically in 4K streaming, but it has never been released on a 4K disc. And if you ask me, 4K streaming is not really 4K because your internet connection may vary and it just doesn't look as good. My number 6 is Megan Park's The Fallout, which shot up my list as we talked about it. Great movie. We just talked about it a bunch. That was my number 7. My number 6 is Sarah Dosa's Fire of Love, which is a really cool documentary about a couple of people who love researching volcanoes and have a very tragic, kind of predictable end, but it's one of the most astonishingly put together movies. The footage that this couple, Katya and Maurice Kraft, shot while they were doing their research, it's unreal. It looks like they're on Mars. It's the craziest stuff. Mercury, Mars, Venus, I don't know planets, but this is an incredible movie. I think it's on Disney Plus. My number 5 is Justine Triet's Anatomy of a Fall. My number 4, Autumn de Wilde's Emma. This movie holds a really special place in my heart because it was the first movie that my wife and I ever saw together in the theater, and I was having a very bad day, and she was very understanding.
And that was the day you realized that Clueless was also based on a...
We don't have to tell the story every time we talk about Emma.
It's one of my favorites.
I knew at some point that Clueless was based on Emma, but I did lean over to Annie and say, this is a lot like Clueless. My number 2 is Emerald Fennell's Promising Young Woman. I also love this movie. I think the hate that Emerald Fennell gets is insane. These are movies, people. You don't have to be friends with the director. Calm down. My number 2 is also Sarah Polley's Women Talking, which I can't believe I didn't have on my list, but it didn't show up in my source list. I own this on Blu-ray. This is one of my favorite movies like ever. My number 1 is Shiva Baby by Emma Seligman, which is my favorite horror movie that's not a horror movie. The reason that I will watch every single Rachel Sennett performance, and also Fred Melamed, great performance as the dad in Shiva Baby. This is a wonderful movie starring mostly Jews, but not the lead role.
Yes, not the central role. Yeah, not the central Jewish role. Yes.
Right. Which is funny because Rachel Sennett in her new show, I Love LA, kind of addressed that in a very funny scene where she's in a hospital and pretends to be Jewish to get out of the hospital or to get seen in the hospital faster.
Is that show good? We haven't watched it yet, but it's on our list.
I don't know if I can tell you that you'd like it. I will say it's like, what if Entourage and Girls were one show? There are times where I hate everyone in the show so much. But you're meant to. So, All right. So that will do it for season 3. Ladies, wow. The ladies really did wow us.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a really cool season.
What do we want to do next season? Should we do action? Should we do England? What do we want to do?
Maybe we could do English action.
Well, let's not pigeonhole ourselves that much. Well, we'll be back in a few weeks with either Never Did It Season 4 Vroom Vroom or Never Did It Season 4 Good Day, Governor.
Yeah. Or You Sound Like You're From London.
Well, now I think we have to do England.